Well, hello everybody. Thank you ever so much for your time in being on this webinar today. Really do appreciate, we've all got things that we need to do, actions that we need to take, but you've allocated some of your time to be here and we're really, really pleased you have. And I'm sure by the end of it, you're going to be exactly the same. Today, it's all about how can you better use cameras in your videos, and will it improve the effectiveness of your meetings and your client meetings? My name is Steve Mills, Head of Marketing at Intermedia Communication Solutions, and I'm here with Javed Tufal, Director of Global Sales and Business Development at Altia Systems. Do you just want to say hello for a second, Javed?
Hi guys, I'm very delighted to be here with Steve, and we look forward to delivering a really good webinar for you guys.
Thank you, Javed, and it's great to have you here, and we really appreciate your time in being here. So just let me talk before I introduce Javed fully, really, and get right into the webinar. What we're looking at today is really three key areas. The use of the PanaCast 2 camera, the fantastic piece of equipment that we're going to be talking about today. I'm also going to talk to you, or Javed is going to talk to you about the remarkable intelligent zoom and how you can use that. And lastly, the PanaCast Whiteboard solution. And they're the three things we're going to be covering. We're going to take about 45 minutes. You'll have an opportunity at the end to ask any questions that you may have, but also I'm going to manage the whole process. And if we get time during Javed's presentation and you've got any questions, then please feel free to ask those, and I'll either fit them in at the end or I'll answer them straight away for you. So why should you listen? Well, at the end of the day, I think, as in business and in life, we've got to be really in front of the curve. We've got to know what's coming next, what's the latest technology, and what are the problems that I've always think with technology is that, we don't really know what we don't know. And so we continue using sometimes old technologies, not being abreast of what's, beyond that curve and coming in the future, and also here right now for us all to use. So that's the real reason behind being here. And once again, a big thank you for your time in attending the webinar today. So let me just talk about a couple of admin things before we start. So firstly, speaking. You can't actually talk on the webinar today, and the reason for that is pretty much we've got a lot of people on the webinar and it all gets very confusing. I'm sure you've been on webinars before, and I know I have, where there's lots and lots of people and who said what and so on and so forth. So we've basically stopped you doing that. What you can do, what we have sort of still allowed is two things. One is putting your hand up. So if we ask a question, you can sort of raise your hand and we can get an understanding of, how many people are like that or feel that and so on and so forth. But more importantly, you can ask questions. So you'll find on your screen a question. So if you just type in your question there, as I said, I'll maybe stop Javed at some point and ask him to answer it. If not, we'll cover that at the end of the webinar. So all that said, let's get straight into the seminar, and I'm going to now, if I may, hand over to Javed, who's going to take you through this remarkable PanaCast 2 camera. He's going to take you through its paces and let you have a better understanding of this fantastic technology. So I'm just going to come out of my share screen and over to Javed.
Thank you, Steve. Really looking forward to this webinar. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really delighted to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen over here, and we'll walk you through a few things about PanaCast 2 camera. As Steve mentioned, intelligent zoom, the whiteboard functionality that we've brought in. So I will talk a little bit about Altia Systems, the company that has brought so much innovation in the camera technologies and the real-time video as well. So 2011 was a great year, was a memorable year for our UK audience. You all remember the last royal wedding. You enjoyed the 2011 royal wedding in the UK, Great Britain. Over here, we founded LTS Systems in 2011. So that was the year our company was founded. We took a unique approach to video conferencing and the camera technology. Cameras have been single lens cameras for the last 100+ years. So we brought a unique approach to that. And the innovation that we brought impressed our investors so much that Intel came on board in 2013, and LTS Systems became an Intel portfolio company. We're located on the West Coast, Cupertino, the Apple country. That's where our headquarters is. We're a team of really great engineers. We have global presence. We're not only present in the North America, and we're increasing our presence in Europe, Australia, and we're all ever so expanding in the Asian region as well. As I mentioned, we are a team of really innovative engineers. We keep on filing patents. We have about 30+ patents, 35 patents actually filed, almost 10 have been granted. So really, leading the cutting edge of technology on camera and intelligent vision. Our business, we first shipped customers, our first FCS was in September, October 2015. Since then, we have over 1,000+ companies that are PanaCast customers over in about 37 countries. Majority of our business, we see a lot of traction in enterprise, small, medium business. And when you talk about verticals, we see a lot of interest from healthcare and education. Those are the two verticals that we see a lot of traction for PanaCast 2 cameras, different use cases that these verticals incorporate PanaCast 2 cameras. Looking at the product innovation, as I mentioned, we're at the cutting edge. We're continuously bringing new innovations into the market. Starting from 2015, we introduced PanaCast 2, and then in Q3 of 2016, around last year, we introduced the PanaCast VR mode, which brings the PanaCast camera into outdoors mode, where you can capture really stunning videos from outdoors as well, where the stitching algorithms get transformed into the blending algorithms, and that's where you capture those stunning videos from outdoors. In Q4 2016, we brought in PanaCast 3D VR Kit. That PanaCast 3D VR Kit allows you to capture a 3D content, record it, and basically generate that 3D VR content and present it at a later date if you want to share that. With PanaCast 2S, what we have done is we've taken that algorithms that run onboard processors on PanaCast 2 camera and moved those processing and rendering algorithms onto a connected PC, connected device, which has a lot more horsepower. So the end result is you would get not just 4 megapixel or 4K resolution camera, you would get a 7.4 megapixel camera that is capable of 4x lossless digital zoom. So there's a lot more capability, that enhancement in capability of PanaCast 2 that is achieved with PanaCast 2S. And then we brought in PanaCast Intelligent Zoom that we introduced in February of 2017 in our first quarter. What it does is it allows the camera to intelligently detect how many people are in the room, and based on that, you don't need a 180-degree field of view. We'll talk more about that. There's a demo as well. And then based on that, the camera can zoom in or zoom out depending on how many people are sitting in its field of view. Then PanaCast Micro Camera, that's really a conceptual product right now, but it is just us putting a flag at the top of the mountain saying we have the capability to miniaturize the cameras, and we've miniaturized it as smaller than a penny, basically, and still achieve 120 to 140 degree field of view. In Q2 17, we brought in PanaCast by popular demand, the PanaCast 2 in black, because initially we were offering PanaCast 2 in silver color, but with black it's available. The latest product from us is the PanaCast Whiteboard, which has been really hit. We launched it at InfoComm in Orlando in 2017, and we'll talk more about that in the later in the webinar, and there's a demo as well. So PanaCast 2 camera, basically, it is 180-degree field of view, 54-degree tall, truly USB plug-and-play camera that delivers a stunning video and captures pretty much everybody who is sitting in the field of view in the room itself. It presents the video in a very natural human perspective way. If you compare PanaCast 2 with any other camera, single lens wide angle camera, you would see in a single lens wide angle camera, you'd see there's radial distortion, there's spatial distortion as well. Objects that are outside or the edges towards the edges of the in a single lens appear to be smaller in size. There's radial distortion as well, and there's a loss of resolution as well. With PanaCast 2 camera, you see the entire field of view laid out in front of you, just in a very natural way. Erin and I are sitting in this picture about 180 degrees from each other. We're basically sitting across from the table, but the capability of PanaCast 2 camera with 3 cameras mounted on the camera head captures the image in such a natural way that it is, the objects at the center and the objects at the edges, they all appear to be the same size. There's no loss of resolution. It's a very natural looking view. Let's talk a little bit about the technology behind the PanaCast 2 camera. So PanaCast 2 camera comprises of an array of cameras. There are 3 cameras mounted on a camera head. We take real-time video from all of these 3 cameras. They're fed to a PanaCast video processor, onboard processor for the PanaCast 2 camera, which takes the real-time video from all these 3 cameras. It synchronizes and stitches that video together. The whole process of taking the real-time video and stitching them occurs within 5 to 7 milliseconds. So it's an ultra-fast way of stitching video that is coming from 3 different cameras. Once the image is stitched, it is rendered onto a virtual cylinder where we apply the geometric corrections and then deliver the stitched image via USB 2.0, via USB 3.0 port, 3.0 interface. And so the whole process from the moment the light enters the camera to the point where it is delivered via USB from photon to bits, it takes no more than 44 to 50 milliseconds. So it's an ultra-fast way of capturing, stitching, rendering, and delivering in a really quick way, without any delay. So as we talked about, there's plenty of patents filed. There's a lot of innovation that we have brought with the PanaCast 2 camera. Because PanaCast 2 camera is a USB plug and play, it is independent of whatever platform you want to choose and whatever service, collaboration service you want to choose. So PanaCast 2 camera is supported on Mac, Windows, PCs, Linux boxes, Chrome for meeting boxes, all of the underlying platforms. As long as they accept the USB plug and play device, PanaCast 2 camera will work with that hardware. And since it is a USB device, it is also available to work with all of these collaboration applications, whether you're using Zoom, WebEx, Skype for Business, Skype, Google Hangouts, whatnot. Whatever the choice you may have, PanaCast 2 camera will work. The reason why it becomes very important is in certain scenarios where the customers have invested in one application, and then at certain point they want to move away from that collaboration service to another collaboration service. That way you're not bound with like whatever the cameras or the associated hardware that you've invested in. You do not have that restriction of moving to the other side. You can always, with PanaCast 2 camera, you can always change your service collaboration service, or you can change your hardware. It does not affect us at all. Compared to,
sorry to interrupt you. I've just been asked, is there any software to download to use any of these systems with the camera, or not?
Great question, Steve. Excellent question. No, there is no software to download. If you're running Windows 8, 8.1, 10, there is no software to download. There are no drivers to download for Macs or even for Chrome for meeting boxes. There is only one software to there's only one driver to download, which is a Windows automatically downloads it with Windows 7. But other than that, there is absolutely no driver that is required. It's truly plug and play.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. The camera with its 180-degree field of view and 54-degree tall is perfect for huddle room spaces. Normally, when you look at huddle room space, that's where the actual work gets done, right? There are brainstorming sessions. People walk up and start doing, whiteboard sessions and whatnot, and then how many times have we heard like, oh, I can't see what you're doing on the whiteboard, or I cannot see who else is in the room. Yeah. But in the huddle room space, if you have a single lens or traditional camera, you really have to sit right in front of the camera, or pretend to be best friends forever to bunch up and be seen by the other side, right?
We're all saying those, when we all huddled around that laptop or something. I've definitely been in many meetings like that. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So yeah, you either do that, or you pop your head in front of the camera and say hello, and then the second person says hello, and then the third person says hello. Yeah. Rather than doing that, I was actually in a meeting with some of our customers in Singapore, where they kept on moving the camera from one face to another face to the third face and then you could never get who else is sitting in the room and what's their body language, right? Yeah. Right. So with the PanaCast 2 camera, once the camera is placed, depending on where you place the camera, but wherever you place it, the beauty of PanaCast 2 is wherever you place it, whether it's underneath the monitor or at the head of the table, anything that is within the 180-degree field of view of the camera can be seen by the remote site. So there's no, the remote site really gets to see the room dynamics. Is able to read the body language, is able to see who's engaged, who's not. So, from that perspective, it is really, really helpful in making the meetings much more engaging, much more productive from that point of view.
Okay, fantastic. Just one more question. Just been asked about the sort of mounting of the camera. How's that work?
Right. So another good question. So the PanaCast camera ships with either the table stand. You can choose a table stand or a wall mount. In wall mount, we have options. We can have a standard wall mount, which is in the US, what we call it's an ADA compliant, because PanaCast 2, it has to be an ADA, American Disabilities Act compliant, because it cannot extend beyond 4.5 inches if it is against the wall. But outside of US, we have some other options, which is our standard mount can give you 4 to 6 inches from the wall. We also have adjustable wall mounts, which can give you almost 8 to 10 inches. And then we have monitor mounts as well, where you can place that camera at the top of that display. So you can mount the camera at the top of the display. You can mount the camera with a wall mount underneath the display. So you have plenty of options.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
All right, great. With the PanaCast camera, as Steve, you just mentioned, you can use the camera with the table stand as well, and it allows you a lot more versatility. You can just take the camera from one huddle room to another huddle room, and you just basically video enable that other huddle room as well. So it's a great piece of technology that can quickly enable your huddle rooms. So let's talk about intelligence. Any other questions, Steve, or shall we move?
Yeah, there's one other about the size of the room. The question was around how big a room can it be used in, both from a point of view of the camera and the quality of the camera, and also the sound. How big? What's the sort of maximum size, really?
Excellent question, Steve. So let me take these two. I believe that there are two questions in there. Number one, how big a room should the PanaCast camera be deployed in? And number two, what are the sound options from PanaCast 2 camera? right? So number one, the size of the room, we say from small huddle rooms to medium to large huddle, large conference room, the PanaCast 2 camera will work fine. And I'll show some, there are some slides in at the back of the presentation. We can share that. Anywhere from 2 to 4 people small huddle room to 8 to 10 conference room, which in American feet terminology, about 18 feet to 20 feet, it should work really well. Beyond that, we are going to bring PanaCast 2S, which gives you 4x lossless zoom and will have a lot more depth and as well as performance from its megapixel point of view. Is 7.4 megapixels. So the second question, the mic. So the camera is equipped with dual Realtek microphones on each end. The microphones are good for small huddle rooms, 4 to 6 people. Once you go beyond that, we all know audio is still the king, even in a video conference call. So we always recommend if the room is large and you're better, it is recommended that you have a dedicated external mic and speaker that would serve you well and enhance the video conference quality better. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. So intelligent zoom. Intelligent zoom is actually what we enabled in PanaCast 2 camera back in February of 2017. What it does is it automatically adjusts the field of view to include all the participants that are sitting, that are in its field of view, basically. It is based on tracking human facial features. It looks at a person's eyes, ears, nose, and then based on that, it detects how many people are in the room and how many people are within, actually, correctly speaking, how many people are in its field of view. They could be people behind the camera, but as long as the camera can see them, based on that detection, the camera can intelligently zoom in or zoom out. The algorithms are designed to include everybody that is in the field of view. The way the way the algorithms work is it is quicker to include and it is delayed to exclude people. And the reason, I'll demo it quickly to you in a second. Let me explain this slide over here. Priya is sitting in a conference room by herself. As you can see, she's by herself. The camera detects she's the only person in that conference room. After about 5 to 10 seconds, the camera zooms in on her and centers her in the middle of that conference. As Alex joins Priya in that conference room, the camera detects there's another person who has walked into the conference room, immediately detects it, and then zooms out to include Alex as well. When Jesse joins Alex and Priya, it zooms out further to include everybody. So it's basically including everybody that is in its field of view. So let me stop sharing for a second. And let me, now you guys can see my video. Steve, you can confirm that, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, we're actually doing a webinar really early over here, and unfortunately I don't have any teammates over here with me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna move out of the field of view. And Steve, you can tell our audience, or I'm gonna just go behind the camera, and okay, you can tell us whether the camera has just zoomed out of the and it would take, as I mentioned, the algorithms are designed that if a person moves out, the camera is going to take its time to zoom out, because you do not want the camera to zoom in, zoom out very quickly. And it takes its time to zoom out completely and then show the entire room. But
yeah, it's just done that, Javed. Yeah, so there was that delay, as you mentioned, and now we've got this much wider view.
Excellent. So I just walk back in, and as soon as I walk back in, it's going to detect that I'm back in that the room, and it has detected me, and it centered me, and it has done it all automatically. And it was much quicker to do that rather than when it was trying to exclude people out from that, or people who have moved out of the field of view. There are no remote controls. I didn't have to do anything. There's no distraction from sound or delay from that perspective. So it immediately looked at, if a person has moved in. So in a scenario when another person moves in, it would automatically zoom out to include that person as well.
Okay, great.
Any questions, Steve?
No, nothing at the moment. No, that's all good. That was a really good demo of it, actually. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. So what we'll do is I'm sharing my screen again. The next thing we're gonna show is the PanaCast Vision. The PanaCast Vision is a software that you can download from Altia Systems website. What it allows you to do as a host is to control the video that you're transmitting to your remote site. So PanaCast Vision is available free. You can download it. Anybody can download it. It is available for Windows machines right now. It will become available for Macs as well. What the PanaCast Vision allows you to do is, as I mentioned, it has PTZ controls built in. It has, you can zoom in, zoom out, or you can define 5 different presets, basically your areas of interest, as a host that from that 180-degree field of view. Once you define those areas of interest, you can pick and choose whatever you want to transmit to the remote site. It also offers you camera controls. You can play with the brightness, contrast, and saturation of the camera. And obviously, you have some options on the settings side, whether you want the application or that software to start on its own, or you want to launch by yourself. So you can play with those settings as well. Within the PanaCast Vision, we have built a PanaCast Whiteboard software, which allows you to capture the whiteboard, scan it, extract it, corrects it, and presents it orthogonally to the remote end. There are settings on that whiteboard. There are a few buttons. One is where the camera scans the room automatically. That is achieved through the rescan button. You also have the capability to manually define your whiteboard through the manual button. Once you've defined the whiteboard, once you have had the brainstorming session, you have the capability to also take a snapshot of the whiteboard and share it with your attendees, with your remote attendees, by saving that whiteboard onto the desktop. We also allow you to play with the settings of the contrast in brightness and saturation, all those things. You can do that. It increases readability. Many times, Steve, I'm pretty sure you've experienced, every time I walk over to the whiteboard and the marker that is underneath the whiteboard, every time you pick that white marker, that marker is always low on the ink, right?
Absolutely, many times.
Yeah, it's rarely that you find a really brand new marker, but in those scenarios, this comes in really handy, where you can enhance the readability of that. And the last button, we'll talk more about that. It allows the whiteboard to convert itself into a virtual camera, where it can take place. It can actually replace the video that you're sending, and then you have the whiteboard being your primary video. We'll talk more about that later, but before we do that, before I do the demo, let me go ahead and describe this process. As I've actually gone through this, the buttons of whiteboard, you would see in this case, the PanaCast 2 camera is looking at the room in its 180-degree field of view, where it detects there's a whiteboard, quite at an angle, Steve, if you notice. But what it has is, it has that white square, concentric square marker. That's what helps the software to detect where the whiteboard starts and draw basically an outline or a boundary around that to determine that's where the whiteboard is. Once you click on the rescan, it is going to scan the room and detect that marker. And once it detects the marker, it detects there is, it basically extracts that area and then presents it with an orthogonal correction. And as you can see, the extracted whiteboard looks exactly like as if the camera is placed right in front of it and not at an angle the way you're seeing in the 180.
Yeah.
It was, we demoed it, we launched it at InfoComm. It was one of the top 10 features. of 2017. So we're getting rave reviews on that. The customers are really really interested in that. One of the things I want to mention over here is currently there has been a trend of expensive whiteboards. Cisco Spark, Google is bringing their jump board. There are a lot of other, great products. These are great companies building really, really innovative, great products, but they also come at a very, very high price. You're looking at any of these products, you're looking anywhere between, upwards of $5,000 or $8,000 per unit, and then you can go as high as, Microsoft Surface Hub, which is about $25,000 or $27,000. So with the PanaCast whiteboard, one of the things that it is it's a very, very nominal price. That is, it's a paid feature, very nominally priced. But the beauty of PanaCast 2 whiteboard is many times the engineers are much more comfortable, walking over to the whiteboard, just drawing that, just picking up a simple marker on a simple whiteboard and just draw it out, and then have that collaborative session with their peers. And so the investment that you make is really, really well received by your customers, and the productivity that it allows you to achieve. Any questions?
Javed, yeah. I've just been asked about size. What's the maximum size of the whiteboard that this will work on?
You can define the size as we talked about manually. You can pick and choose the size, and even in a very orthogonal, if the camera and the whiteboard are sort of like parallel, as long as the camera is detecting the whiteboard, it would pick up that whiteboard. So anywhere from this current whiteboard that I have behind me is about 8 to 10 feet. It has, we can go beyond 12 to 14 feet also. So yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
Any other questions, Steve?
No. You spoke about the smart, the technology, and how that's happening. What about a smart board with this? How's that work?
Right. So, we've, as I mentioned, we've brought a lot of innovation in the whiteboard. What we can do is we can also capture the smart boards, we can capture the regular whiteboards, whatever area we want to define, we would be able to extract that area and present it as a whiteboard. So this should work for smart boards and any other boards that are in its field of view.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So let me go ahead and stop sharing for a second, and let's give our audience a demo of what the whiteboard functionality is. So for a second, I'm gonna stop my video, Steve. I'm not disappearing. I'm not pulling a Houdini act.
I'm glad you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still there. I'm in. My audio is still coming. I'm still in spirit as well as in physical form. So yes, let me go back to my video here in a second, and I'll share my screen, and I am back. So now what I've done is, for our audience, what I've done is I have changed my video from PanaCast to camera to PanaCast Vision. So I will share my desktop to show what I've launched. So let me go ahead and share my desktop. And let me go ahead and
okay.
Yeah. Are you seeing my desktop?
Yep.
Excellent. So this is PanaCast Vision application we talked about, and as I mentioned, there are controls built in to zoom in. As you can see, my video zooming in, zooming out, and I can pan around the room also with these controls. And I've also done some presets. So as a host, I can define the area of interest and preset that, so that when I'm having a conversation with the remote party, I can I can pick and choose what area I want to show. In this case, if I had a preset on a whiteboard, I'm not using a whiteboard functionality, but I want them to focus on whiteboard, I can select this as a preset, and then immediately the whiteboard is, it's available to be in the video. Or we can go beyond, or we can go full. If I want to focus on myself, I want them to pay attention on what on me only, then I can go that way. And with you can go back to your full 180-degree field of view. So those are the controls that are built in with the PanaCast Vision. Again, color contrasts. It allows you to manage your color, and then the settings that it shows up over here, right there on the settings side of the things. This is the PanaCast Whiteboard. So once I click on the PanaCast Whiteboard, it's going to show the buttons and the controls that are associated with the whiteboard software. So once we click on that whiteboard, you would see it's a paid feature. Once I click on launching the whiteboard, it has actually immediately detected. What it has done is it scanned the room, looked for that concentric squares, and it has detected that whiteboard, the writing on that whiteboard, and it is extracted and presented it as a content that I can share with the remote party. So just as you share your PowerPoint presentation, I can go ahead and share my whiteboard application. So if I were to, I don't know if I can share, you can see that, but I would have to do stop sharing. But if I go click on new share, and then you're still seeing my my desktop, right, Steve?
Yep. Yeah.
So now you can see, folks, you can see that I have the capability to either share my PowerPoint. I can also go ahead and share my whiteboard, right? So just as if I'm just like I can share my PowerPoint, my whiteboard can be shared as well.
Fantastic.
So let me go ahead and stop sharing my my desktop, and then I'm sharing my whiteboard only now.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. So now it's I'm sure that folks over at are only seeing my whiteboard, not my PowerPoint presentation. So you're seeing my PowerPoint, my whiteboard, but you're also seeing my video in the small thumbnail video. In that, so what I can do is I can actually change my whiteboard to my primary video as well. But that's something we can talk about later as well. Any questions, Steve?
No, just a couple of really positive comments saying, fantastic, sounds brilliant. So, yeah, great demo of that, Javed.
Excellent. Yep, it is, like I mentioned, we're seeing a lot of traction. People are really interested in the whiteboard, and it is a great tool, especially for small huddle rooms. As we talked about, single lens camera and a whiteboard mounted on the side wall really doesn't capture everything, right? But with this technology and with PanaCast 2 camera, you can make your meetings much more productive, and you don't have to have two different cameras, one looking at the people sitting in the huddle room, and another one looking at the whiteboard. That's what actually is a very common solution that people try to enable or deploy. Have two cameras, one looking at the whiteboard, one looking at the people. But in this case, you can achieve everything just by a single PanaCast 2 camera.
Fantastic.
I want to quickly give a sneak preview to our audience about the new things that are coming. We talked about the PanaCast 2 P2S. Right now, it is going under QA. By end of this year or early next year, it would become available. But one of the things that is really going to enhance the vision of PanaCast 2 camera is that HDR capability that we are going to shortly introduce by mid-September. it is what we call is PanaCast Vivid, and I think you would see in this picture, you see the color, the brightness, the colors that are brought into life with PanaCast Vivid enabled compared to when you do not have the PanaCast Vivid enabled. So that's stay tuned for that. I'm sure we'll do a quick webinar for that as well once it becomes available after mid-September.
Great.
Some use cases as we and some reference customers, we talk about PanaCast 2 camera in cases of very, very large screens. Instead of mounting the camera at the very top of the screen, we recommend to mount the camera at the base of the screen or at the bottom of the screen. So as PanaCast shines really well when it is mounted about at 48 to 52 inches from the floor, where it really captures people sitting, and it's basically a seat at the table, right? So that's where it comes really into life. In this scenario, GoDaddy is using PanaCast 2 camera with Zoom application, and as I mentioned, there are about 110 plus conference rooms enabled with PanaCast 2 across 4 geographic locations. We talked about the size of the room, Steve. There were questions about how far can the camera see. But this is a really powerful picture. What it does is it's a picture from University of Western Sydney's 300 seating auditorium, and you can capture even when you do not have to zoom in, zoom out, and you don't have to you can actually see the entire conference room in one shot. So that's a very powerful image to see the entire conference in its entirety, with just one shot, right? Exactly, very powerful. And then the second camera could be facing the panel audience, the panelists. So whoever is joining through remote can switch between if they want to see the panel discussion going on or view the panelists, or if they want to see the audience, they get to see both of them. As I mentioned, we have over 100 universities and colleges who are using PanaCast 2 camera. This is from Acadia Divinity College. They use that for their remote learning use case scenario. Really happy with what how the PanaCast is so engaging and brings the entire class to the remote attendees as well. So that's pretty much what I had. Looking forward to. I hope this was helpful. We have, the PanaCast 2 camera. It's really changing the way you do your video conference. It involves everybody. It enhances productivity. It makes the meetings much more engaging, much more immersive, and much more fun to be in, right? So, with that said, I would hand it back to you, Steve. If there are any follow-up questions, be happy to answer those.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for a fantastic demo there, Javed. If I just take back the share screen, I could. There we go, hopefully. That should bring me back. Yeah. And let me just share my screen. And I've just got a couple of more slides to go through. And there we go. So any questions, any other questions? I think, we've had some really good questions so far. And let's just see if anybody else, I'll just give you a few moments just to type anything in. Let me just have a little look here. We've got a question around the sort of angle. Now, my understanding, Javed, is it's like it'll give an absolute 180-degree view going forward. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. The camera natively gives you 180-degree field of view, 54 tall, and let me talk about the resolution. The camera delivers panoramic 4K video. That means natively the camera delivers 3840 by 1080p resolution, and the resolution and the video aspect is 32 by 9.
Okay, fantastic. I've got somebody asking how soon can they be delivered. So I can tell you that they're in stock in the UK for literally immediate delivery. So if anybody wants to obviously talk to us about getting their hands on one of the cameras, they're in stock in the UK and we can deliver straight away. So obviously subject to how far away. If you're in Europe, for example, you know, how long the post is going to take to get there, but they're in stock and ready to go. So I think that's just about it in terms of questions, Javed. So the important thing now is, you know, where do we go from here? Where do you go from here? You've invested your time in attending the webinar. We've certainly had some really good feedback in terms of what people think. So, you know, action is always the key. You know, it's great to come on a webinar. I hope, like, you know, that you really enjoyed Javed's presentation. I know I did, and I constantly learn new things every time I listen to Javed, and I get a better understanding of this fantastic product. So where do you want to go from here? Well, if you want a demo, we can certainly fix that up. Just get in touch with us and we'd be very pleased to do that. We'd also like to make on the webinar a special offer. Anybody who would like to buy a camera or maybe a series of cameras, we'd be very happy to offer you 10% off to anybody who's been on the webinar today, and we'll do that as a sort of August, that's August 2017, just to clarify, special offer. So 10% off for anybody who is interested in buying a camera. So there's our contact details. You can read that for yourself. You can contact us. No doubt we'll drop you a quick email to thank you for attending and try and get any more feedback regarding the webinar. So it just leaves me to sincerely thank Javed for his time, his expertise, and for giving us a great demo in terms of his PowerPoint presentation, but also actual demonstration of the product live on the webinar today. So thank you, Javed. Any final comments from you?
No, thank you, Steve. I mean, it was a great opportunity to talk to our UK audience and then hopefully European audience, wider audience as well. And look forward to answering any of the questions that may have and any opportunities that we look forward to working with you with Intermedia and then, yeah, so bringing PanaCast 2 into your organization. So looking forward to that.
Thank you ever so much again. Thank you for attending, and we look forward to hearing from you in the near future. Thank you very much.